Hi everyone, you're going to be doing an experiment with some of the trees in your can yard. I'm going to show you the correct steps to go through to design and conduct your experiment. The first step in the scientific method that you're going to be following is to ask a question. I've noticed that when I fill up a glass like this of water and put an egg in, the egg sinks to the bottom. Just like that. So my question is going to be, is there something that I can add to the water to make the egg float to the top or even just float in the middle of the glass? I decided I'm going to add 3 different things to glasses of water. I'm going to add baking soda, sugar, and salt to see how they affect whether the egg floats or not. The second step of the scientific process is to form your hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess as to the outcome of your experiment. Now, for you to make an educated guess, that means that you may need to do a little bit of research. Since I'm going to add 3 different substances to water to see if an egg floats in it or not, I need to come up with a hypothesis for each of the substances I'm going to add. The first one we have is baking soda. Now, I know when I've seen baking soda and water put together before, it kind of fizzles a little bit. So I'm going to say that yes, that the egg is going to float in the baking soda and water. The next one we have is sugar. When I think of sugar and water mixed together, I think of it as making kind of like a sweet syrup. So I'm going to say no, that the egg isn't going to float in the sugar water. The next one we have is salt. Now, I know when I've been swimming in the ocean, which is salt water, that I can float a lot better in the ocean than I can in just a regular pool. So I'm going to say yes, that the egg will float in salt water. The third step in the scientific process is designing your experiment. The first thing you need to do is come up with all the materials that you'll need and make a list of them like I have here. Then gather all your materials into one place. Now I'm just going to go ahead and talk about my materials I'm going to use really quickly. Like I said before, I'm going to use the sugar, the baking soda, and the salt. Now I have 4 identical containers, and it's really important that they're identical because we want to make sure that the substance that we're adding to the water is going to make the difference in the egg floating or not, as opposed to the shape of the container. If you have a short squatty container and a tall skinny container, how do you know if it's the salt that makes the egg float or if it's the size or the shape of the container? The next thing I've done is I have 4 eggs. They're all the same temperature. I just got them out of the refrigerator. I have a container here of water that I've filled up from my sink. That's important too because the water needs to be the same temperature for all of the different substances because we want to make sure that if you have really, really cold water and really, really hot water, that's not somehow affecting the egg. I have paper towels to wipe up any spills that I've made. I have 4 spoons so I can stir in my ingredients in each container and not take the one that I've just used for the salt and put it into the sugar container because that might change our experimental outcome. And the last thing I have is a measuring spoon that I'm going to use to measure out each of my substances into the containers. The next thing you need to do is write down all your procedures that I've done here and then read through them thoroughly. Number 1, fill each container with an equal amount of water. Number 2, add 2 tablespoons of each substance to separate containers and stir with a spoon. Be sure to label each container. And number 3, gently drop an egg into each container and observe.